Yesterday we discussed about MVC, right? We discussed MVC architecture and we understand what all modules that we have to cover MVC application. For views, for view layers, especially for front end, right? We can go with HTML and JSPs, and in frameworks, some framework tags also given, like struts framework. If you are using struts tag libraries, we can use in Spring MVC tag library also given. Okay, something like JSTL tags. So such tag library also given for the front end. If it is a pure microservice based application, your front end would be in Angular or React or any mobile technology, mobile UI in Android or iPhone you might have here. And backend part, if it is servlets, you can write servlets here with JSP combination. Servlet library you can use. Again, in servlets, we have JSP, filters, listeners. You can use all that concepts here for controller. In struts, we will use action classes and action forms. In struts framework, we used to use them. Similarly, JSF. And in Spring, we have Spring controllers. If you want to go with Spring, in Spring, we will use @controller or @REST controller. We will use them in Spring. Okay, so that you can use Spring tag library combination, or it can be a REST application. When you use a REST based controller, right? It can be a REST based application. So here you can have a different technology stack, Angular, React, anything you can have. Yeah. So this combination you can have here. So the controller responsibility, as we understand, right? It will read data and finally it will send response. It will read data from you and it will send response back to the front end. And to cover model, business code, and DAO, we have different technology stacks. Earlier, for enterprise applications, we used to use for service layer, especially for distributed applications, right? Here we used to use EJB combination, EJB session beans and EJB entity beans. For distributed applications. So if you design using EJB combination, then a lot of applications server are required here. So you need to deploy them into EJB containers, and stub skeleton model we will use here. Technically, EJBs are very powerful. At the same time, they will demand so much, technically so much skilled people we need here to write EJBs, as well as they need application server space also. So you need to invest more on your application when you choose EJBs. Now we don't have such dependency. Even distributed applications we can build using REST APIs. Okay, so here instead of EJB session beans, you can go with simple Spring Core. And you can use to handle transactions, Spring transactions given. And if you want to integrate with any other services, right, like mailing services, Spring Mail. And if you want to use any queues, message queues, so Spring MQ module also given. You can use all of them here for your service part. And for DAO, either you can go with JDBC or ORM like Hibernate, JPA, MyBatis, or we have Spring integrated JDBC or Spring integrated ORM also we have. And on top of all this, Spring Data JPA also we have. We can use any one of this module. For REST applications, right? For REST-based applications, we go with REST controller and basic Spring Core we will use, and Spring Data JPA. And if at all required, a Spring AOP also we will be using here. For normal web-based applications, we go with controller and other library combination. Okay, the only change you will see is either you will go with the controller or REST controller. So the remaining backend part used to be same. So based on your requirement, if you want to apply transactions we can pick. If you want to send emails, mail API we will choose. If you want to do integrate with message queues like Kafka, Rabbit, or ActiveMQs, Spring MQ modules we will use. And if you want to apply services code on the fly to your business, AOP we will use. It is again a powerful module like your OOPS concepts, right? Some AOP concepts given to make your code more, reusable. And here backend part for database operations, it's your choice. You can go with JDBC, plain ORM, Spring JDBC, Spring ORM, or JPA. Any combination you can use. And as I said, right, for any module, right, end of the day, it should run on Spring container only. It should run on Spring container given as a simple bean class. Okay, as I told you, right, there are 3 containers given. Core container is bean factory, and J2EE container is application context, and we have web container for web application, right? Web application context. Web application context. So in web applications, purely internally it will use web application context only. End of the day, we are going to build microservice based or web applications, right? For them, it will use web application context. And this is part of your dispatcher servlet. In MVC architecture, we will integrate our code with the dispatcher servlet. This dispatcher servlet internally will start your web application context. And these two, to understand how containers will work, right? We will be seeing these two, but in real time, internally, your dispatcher servlet is going to use web application context. This web application context behavior and this J2EE container behavior is same. So if you understand this with core programming, right, you will be getting how it is working. Okay. So when we talk about containers, right, the responsibility of containers. So first we are starting with container module. Okay. So we'll be starting with this container module, core module, and core concepts, Spring core concepts. Then we will shift to another modules. Okay. So containers journey, right? Especially in Java, containers journey started from servlets. So while we are doing servlets code, for web application, right? Servlets code for web application. Let's say your application name is student management system dot var file. Web applications we used to convert as a var file, web archive file. All the code will be placed in as part of var. Okay. So this var file we used to deploy it into server called Tomcat. We used to deploy this into Tomcat. So Tomcat contains servlet container. Okay, so Tomcat server contains servlet container. So this Tomcat, what it will do, it will read your SMS var file. It will extract it like how you will extract the zip file, RAR files, right? Similar way, it will extract your var file. Tomcat will extract this var file and it will read all your servlets from your code. It will read all your servlets from your code. Okay. So Tomcat, when you start this Tomcat server, right? When you start this, it will read all servlets and create objects. Who will do that? Tomcat will do that. We never create any servlet object directly. Your Tomcat server will create servlets objects. So it will create objects for your servlets and it will inject init parameters. It will inject init parameters to servlet init methods. If servlet need any initialization parameters, right? Here also we have this dependency, injection concept. From web.xml file, you can pass data to your servlet. If you are aware, right, you can easily able to understand. So from web.xml file, we used to pass data to servlet classes. So Tomcat container, when you start, it will create servlet object and it will inject init parameters also to the servlets. Init method, there is a init method. So into that init method, it used to pass all the initialization parameters. Init parameters matlab means during startup of your class, if some configurations required for your class, configurations we can supply from XML file, so that in future, if you want to do that configuration changes, let's say your servlet is connecting with some database, so that database parameters we can pass here via init method. In future, if you want to do the changes, we can do the changes in XML file. This init parameters we use to code in web.xml file. There will be one XML file. In that XML file, we used to configure them. And servlet container or your Tomcat will execute live methods. Servlets will have lifecycle methods also. First step, it will create object. Next thing, it will inject init parameters. Third thing, it can able to manage life cycles. There will be init method, destroy method. Means during initialization, if you want to do some help to your servlet, you can do that initialization part here. For your class instance level variables, you can create objects and you can prepare your class before getting end user request. And lifecycle method, right? Init is one of its lifecycle method. And when you shut down your application, if you want to, close all the connections from destroy method we used to do, something like how you have try catch with finally blocks, right? Similar way. We have such lifecycle methods also here. Tomcat will handle them. Who will do this job? 1, 2, 3. Tomcat container will do that. Similarly, when your application is EJB application, same way EJB container also will do this. EJBs, right? When you implement your application as a EJB, mostly distributed applications we used to build. Distributed, right? Distributed applications we used to build in EJB. And EJB applications used to convert as a EAR file, EAR enterprise archive file, and we used to deploy them into EJB container like WebSphere, WebLogic, JBoss. There are many application servers we have. This is web server. Tomcat is a web server. These are application servers. Tomcat can handle only servlets, whereas WebLogic, JBoss, WebSphere, all the servers can handle servlets as well as EJBs also. They will have both the servers. Same thing. This WebLogic also will read your EJB classes. It will create objects to your EJBs, and it will handle lifecycle methods. In EJBs, we used to have 5 lifecycle methods, whereas in servlets, we used to have only init and destroy. Here we used to have 5 lifecycle methods. It will execute all that life cycles. Okay, and something more powerful, EJBs are. Same way, I mean, what is the problem with servlets and EJBs? If I go with means lot of development time it will take, lot many cycles as a developer, right? You need to go here and there, you need to write lot of code, you need to do lot of integrations, and moreover, you have server dependencies here. You need to buy these servers. If it is a small scale application for less investment business, right? You need to buy these servers if you need EJB capabilities. To avoid all these, right, open source frameworks came into the picture, like ORM tool Hibernate is an alternative to EJB entity beans they designed. And for this complete EJB's alternative is the Spring. So using Spring, they slowly avoided EJBs, so that here the dependency of application servers avoided, so that you need not to invest a lot on your application. Using Spring, you can implement your enterprise application. Okay. And Hibernate also having similar features of EJB entity beans. And whoever is the part of this EJB team, right? He only designed Hibernate. All similar features given with the self containers. Whereas for EJB session beans and entity beans, we need to have a special containers even for servlets also. So Spring avoided all these problems. Do you have a web application nowadays, right? When you go with Spring Boot, even you need not to use Tomcat. Internally, Spring Boot itself is bringing us Tomcat. If you go with Spring Boot here, implement your SMS application, web application only. Web application you can implement, and finally you can convert it as SMS jar, and you can run. You can run this application, and as part of Spring library itself, Tomcat server is there. So directly you can run it on JRE. It will start your web application. Spring Boot is facilitating it. In Spring Boot, we have these features. Spring Boot came up with built-in Tomcat. And for any enterprise applications, you can go with Spring Boot only. It can handle all the things that EJB is doing. What EJB is doing, all the things you can cover using Spring modules like Spring Core. We have Spring transactions. In EJBs, we used to use a lot of transactions. And what else you need? AOP to add services on the fly. And more than EJBs, you have all the mail integration services, whatnot. Spring MQs for integration with Kafka kind of thing. So as an alternative, Spring brought everything to build enterprise applications. And again, to run these classes, you don't need any special container. You can run these classes on your Spring container only. Spring container is having all such capabilities. We have Spring container only. You don't need any special software. So self-containers we have, so that it became very popular. Why Spring became very popular? Because they made framework easy for the development, and they given containers also, self-containers. As part of their library itself, they given self-containers. So then the application development became simple, and slowly everyone moved from Servlet CJ base to Spring. And it attracted many people to do the application development using Spring itself, because of lot of cost cuttings we are doing here, right? Development time is very less in Spring if you compare with EJBs. If EJB is taking time around 6 months, whereas in Spring you can do it in 1 month. So that much development efforts will be reduced, and end of the day, containers free of cost. Okay, self containers only given. So you need not to invest single rupee on containers. Just what you need to invest is you need to have a runtime environment space. JR you need in your runtime. Maybe you need one Linux server or Unix server, any server. Or you can have Microsoft Windows server also you can have. Anything of your choice. For runtime, right? You can have any server, or you can deploy it into your local machine and you can publish it. From local machine also you can run. It's up to you. Okay. They reduced almost all the cost, servers cost, development effort. So that's why it became more popular. And these containers are capable to do all these jobs which Servlet containers used to do and EJB containers used to do. So the first main part is creation of object. We can able to create objects, and we can do dependency injection and lifecycle methods. Everything we can handle in Spring containers also. And in Spring, we used to believe that, or Spring, what it will recommend is try to make all your classes as simple POSO classes, either your controller class, simple POSO classes. It will ask you to implement them as simple POSOs. Your business code or DAO code, everything try to make it as a simple class, plain class. You need not to make it as a complex class by extending, and by implementing other libraries. Just a plain class is sufficient to become it as a business, and a plain class is sufficient for DAO or repository. Let's make all these classes as simple POSO classes, plain old Java object, plain Java class, not a complicated class. So if you go with this model, right, your application is, so much, easy to maintainable and easy to readable, easy to integrate, easy to, do like plug and play. You can remove in future if you think that this DO is outdated. Easily you can remove this layer and you can fix new layer. Many patterns are there, we will see. The first and foremost thing is in MVC. In MVC, you implement all the classes, try to implement all the classes like POSOs. Okay. So once you implement them, what you need to do in earlier while using XML based configuration, right? Am I audible to everyone?
Yeah. We are busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we used to configure all these classes in XML file, all controller layer classes. Earlier, nowadays we are not doing that. Earlier we used to do this style. Nowadays we are not following it, okay? So we used to keep all these classes configuration, right? Service classes, DO classes, everything into Spring XML file. And we used to load this XML into container. We used to load this into container. End of the day, the container is web application context. This is inbuilt, given as part of your dispatcher servlet. So dispatcher servlet used to read your XML file, and this XML file it used to load this into web application context. Then this web application context immediately it used to read all your classes. It will create controller objects, service objects, and DO objects who do the web application context. But for our practice, right, we will be using only application context. We will use application context in main method, as we are not going to implement any direct web applications, no? Yeah. So nowadays we are not using XML based configurations. Then what we are doing instead of this XML based, excuse me. Hello. Yeah. Sorry, guys. I got urgent call. Yeah. So what I want to say here is now we are not using this XML. XML is completely avoided. Okay. XML is avoided. Everything we are configuring via annotations only. So when we use annotations kind of configuration, right, we will avoid this completely XML file. We never configured these POJOs into any XML. Directly your container go and search for the packages. It will go and search each package. It will go and read each package. And if you annotate your classes with annotations, right? For controller, we have few specific annotations. For services, DAO, and for utilities, there are various different kind of annotations. So it will recognize that classes and it will pick that classes and it will create objects. In a reverse way, earlier we used to do configuration and we used to say container, these are my classes. Nowadays, what it is doing, it became more intelligent and it is going to your packages and it is reading classes. So as a developer, you don't need to put efforts to configure your file also. Just the only thing that you need to do is you need to write your controller and you need to implement your business methods directly. You just need to focus on your methods implementation. The remaining everything on the fly, your container will take care. But we go as a step by step from XML based configuration to annotations, right? You'll be getting how it, evaluating or how it is, changing. Okay, we go from very beginning XML based configurations only. Okay, so the first thing that what we learn is how these objects are creating for controllers or service or DAO. Everything we consider as a POSO, right? If I create a POSO class and if I configure it in XML file, then what next? How it will be loading into container and how it will create objects. Okay, and how I can pass configuration parameters if my DAO need configuration of database DB. Okay, DB configuration if it required, configuration of DB database. Okay, so how I can able to pass data DB configuration. Okay, from here to here. Objects anyway it will create. Once after object creation, if you can do the configurations from your properties file or XML files. Okay, so configuration properties, your properties, if you can pass here via dependency injection concept, you can able to pass them to your classes. Same way, your service class may need this DAO object. So when you need this DAO class reference here, that one also using dependency injection concept, we will be passing it here. And if your controller needs service class object, same way, service reference, then we'll pass here. Okay, so using dependency injection concept, any dependency of your class, right, we can able to pass. Excuse me. Yeah, so object creation, dependency injection, and if life cycles also required, it can manage life cycles. We'll talk about it later. Okay, the main most important concept is how to create objects and how to manage dependency injections. Okay, I'll show you one quick example how to create objects. And if you want to practice, right, go to, where is this blog? Spring HTML. Yeah, so go to this blog again. I'll share this link. Okay, step by step, if you want to do, right, do this. Download jar files. First thing, download jar files and make it available. Then download this first example, IOC container. Download it and import that into your Eclipse. Once you download, right, extract that as well. All are RAR files. Okay, extract them and then use Eclipse IDE, or you can use IntelliJ Even IntelliJ also you can import, no issues. In IntelliJ, you need to use open project option and you need to open. Here we will use import option, okay? So go to import option, existing projects into workspace, browse. If it is in downloads, right? Yeah, this is the core example. You need to select it and click on import. It is saying same project cannot be imported because already this project is there. Spring IOC core, right? Spring IOC core we have here. So if you see this example, here I have one poser class, a simple poser class test. So consider it as a controller, service, business, whatever you want, name it. So I have the test class with one method hello. Just to observe output, right? In constructor, I added one output statement and in hello method also. Now first step, you need to create this class, okay? Create a simple Java class. And as a next step, create XML file. Create a simple XML file. In this XML file, you need to add this DTD. I'll tell you from which location this DTD you need to find. First, you need to add DTD, doc type definition, which means it will validate your tags. And the main root tag for this Spring XML file is beans. Root tag means only once. You need to start here and you need to end here. Between you can have so many tags. So in between we have a very important tag is bean tag. In this bean, we will be configuring our class with one ID. We'll talk about this scope later. So now my bean class is configured. So as per this diagram, right, we will be configuring this poser classes into XML file. Then as a next step, what we will do after configuring it into XML file, we load it into container. So here if you see, I used core container. I told you, right, there are three containers: bean factory application context and web application context. First I'm loading into bean factory. Okay, so bean factory is a core container. So here you can see first line, it will find out your XML file. Next line, it is loading your XML file into container. Okay, then next, if some user is requesting for object of bean, then it will create object. For first user, let's say Naveen is requesting now. So for Naveen, it will create object. IOC will create object at the time of first user request. Which IOC container? This bean factory, which is core container, which is lazy container, we can name it. This lazy container will create object at the time of first user request. How user is requesting? Using this container name dot get bean method, we are asking for this object. Until unless you ask for the object, it will not create it. And the object will be created for first user. Naveen is requested, so for Naveen it created. Now another user request, then it will not create object. Already object is there, right? It will share the same object. It will share same object. Again, one more user request, same object, it will be shared. So when you observe these objects are, all these objects are equal or not. For Naveen given one T object, for another user given T1 and T2. If you check all these objects are, it will say same. Whatever object created during first request, same object will be served. Similar way, all the containers, even your servlets also, right? Servlets objects are singletons. Means only one object will be created. One test object only created. For three users request, whatever objects given are all are equal. So that's why we are seeing true statement here. We'll talk more about this, okay? Singleton and prototype. So this is how core container used to behave. Core container, until first user, it will not create objects. That's why we used to say it lazy. Whereas this application container, before request coming into the first user itself, it will create. Means while loading time only. While loading your XML only, it will create. For a proof, I will run this in debug mode so that you can see in which line object is created. I added debug pointer here. Okay. So yeah. Now debug pointer there in line number 15, which is J2EE container startup line. So execute this line. So this line execution is completed. By the time of that line execution is completed, your object is created. Now first user started requesting it. Hello, good morning. But for first user request, it is not creating any object because object is created during loading time only. For other users also not at all created. During loading time, whatever object is there, that same object given. Same thing if I run it in debug mode in core container. Now here bean factory is a core container. Let's execute it. So bean factory container is executed, but no object created. Now first user requesting for the object. Now see test object is created when first user requested. This is how the behavior of bean factory is. It is a lazy container. That's why until unless first user request, it will not create any object. But need not too much focus on this. Maybe for interview's sake, I'm covering it, okay? So they may ask core container, what is J2EE container?
Naveen, I have one question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so for application container, so
Yeah.
what are the bean classes we have maintained in the test.xml? So
Hmm.
like here we have maintained only the one bean class.
One bean
So
class.
if you are maintaining the three bean class,
Hmm.
okay. So while we are loading that .xml file, so at that
Hmm.
time it will create object for
Three
the both
classes.
the three classes, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's all depends on how many classes you have. One more example also I have here. If you see, uh, okay, we'll see with many classes tomorrow, okay? Or else let me put some more classes here in beans package, right? In beans package, I'll put class A. And let's put one more class B. And see, now we will be configuring three classes here. Test bean, A bean, B bean. Okay, A. See here, fully qualified path I'm giving, okay? Full package path you need to give A and B. Now how many beans we have? 3 beans. Now during loading time, what it will do? Debug. So first line executed means your XML file loaded into container. And during loading time, how many objects creating? Test object, A object, B object. All your classes objects will be created during application startup itself. You started application, all objects are ready. Now it is like, already prepared. Biryani is prepared at hotel. You just need to visit and eat it. That's it. Whereas bean factory will make you wait, sit. You requested for biryani, right? I'll cook it. Now I will start cooking. I'll wash rice and I'll wash chicken and I will prepare the food. You need to wait for next 40 minutes. Bean factory will do that way. Until unless you request for the object, it will not create it. Whereas application context, When you start your application itself, it will prepare them. And when user request, comfortably user can use these objects because they are ready already, like ready-made. Okay. Yeah. So no hurry. Okay. So tomorrow we'll go, in depth into each. What is this beans? Why I should create? How to configure, and what is singleton? What is prototype beans? Is it really required to keep singleton or prototype? You know, we'll be discussing in depth into each, and we'll proceed. So we need to get more conclusion on this concept. From tomorrow, regular sessions happening, right? We'll go in a different pattern. Okay. And we'll be discussing there. Any doubts so far?
No.
Yeah. So this link will change. Okay. You're done with the 5 demo sessions, right? So 5 or 3? 3, I believe, right? 3 demo sessions.
Yeah, we have completed.
Yeah. So mostly tomorrow, right? This link will get changed. So get the regular link. Okay. So call to DS people and get the regular one, and we'll be joining in that line. And course content here you can see we'll be covering Spring Framework, Spring Boot, and microservices. As add-on to them, we'll be covering advanced Java concepts and Hibernate during workshops, and so many tools also. I mean, anyway, they are all free workshops. Okay.
Hello, sir. Time will be same, right?
Yes,
That is 7:40, right?
7:40.
Okay. To 8:30.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any issues with time?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So the timing will be same. Yeah. So get the link. Okay. Get the confirmation and get the regular link, and we'll start regular session from tomorrow.
We need to ask for the link or they will send?
They should send once done with your payment. Actually, how they do is they will send all the confirmation names list to me. As we see 10 participants here, right? If I see 10 participants payments there, I will ask them to send a regular link instead of this demos link. So then they will share the regular link with you. Yeah. I will see. Okay. Today they will send me that feedback details. So based on that, I will request them to generate a new link, or else continue with the same link for 1 or 2 sessions. Okay. Anyway, you will be having this link or regular link. One will be available. Okay. Yeah. So that's all for today. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye. Have a good day.